Hello or welcome back. As always, keep it simple. Here we're talking about models in Hilt. Gonna make setup, talk about models, interface inject with annotations binds, instance injection with provides, qualifiers, and we will show how you can provide in context with Hilt injection. We're gonna start by setting up the structure. We can play around with these properties. We will create a mockup for a network service that will do nothing actually, just print messages, but we'll be able to learn all these concepts of Hilt. Let's create here a package called network. Here, network, like this. And let's create our interceptor. Our interceptor here will be interface. Let's create interface here. Let's call interceptor like this, and our interceptor will just be interface from log, and we will expect a message that will be a string like this. Let's erase this. Simple like that. Now let's create the implementation here. Here we can create class that will be called interceptor implementation like this. And okay, here let's inject the constructor like before, nothing new here. Let's make the import like this, and now we can just implement the members here, and here just make a log d like this. Let's import this, let's import tag, and here we can say interceptor implementation, just we know it's from this class here, and here we're passing our message like this. Okay. Now I think we can create from here. Let's create a network service. So let's create our network service here. Network service. Okay. And here in our network service, let's make privilege constructor here like this. And here we will pass a build, and we will be from the type builder. Okay, so don't import this build here. We're gonna create a class here. Class builder like this. You can see it's not an error anymore, and here you can create variables like this one. Host will be a string, it'll be a nullable one. You can set this null, and we can have a private set for this. Here we can create a path like this, you'll be a string. Okay, we can create a protocol like this, you'll be a string. Private set like this. And for last here we can create an interceptor. You'll be from our interceptor interface. You'll be a nullable one. Oops, like this. And we can make a private set here too, like this. Make sure that you taking for this interceptor here from our interface, and now we can just create functions to set this value. Fun, we can host, apply this, exactly the host should be string like this, and we can just keep going with this. Let's see if the Android Studio help us with this. Nope. The path, the same thing, and the protocol and the interface, and we have a build here. This build will be your network service, and we're passing this build here. This interceptor here is a private set since new. Okay, as well, you can just change this to var, and now we can, now let's create variables here. We can put the values here. Well, host will be string nullable, and we can have the path, the program interceptor too, and we can just have a niche here. Let's create a niche like this, and here we're gonna to say this dot host build dot host, the path, the protocol one, and the interceptor too. Now you with our builder here almost complete. These allow us to call the builder outside the class. Now we can just create a function here. Let's create a function here. Fun. Let's call this perform network call like this, and we can call our interceptor and do this, and we can do a log d here. We can, let's import this like this, and we can pass our tag here, tag, and network saves a message, something like this. Actually, let's call this call forward like this, and you can actually just pass this. We don't have to pass everything here. And we will see how to inject interfaces. First, let's create the interface that we're gonna need. Let's create a new network adapter here. Here we can create our network adapter. Let's create a file. You'll be interface one. Let's call this network adapter like this. And here the interface is just log2 one log. You will be expecting a message that will be a string like this. Okay, from the network adapter we can create now a class. Now that we create your network adapter here, let's create response interface implementation here because we don't have this yet. Let's create this response interceptor implementation like this. This will be a class, and here we can inject our constructor like this, and we extends the interceptor. Let's implement the members, and here will be a symbol as a logd, log.d, and we're gonna to pass our tag here like this, and you can say response interceptor implemented message like this, and pass our message. Let's import this, get rid of these things here, and we should be fine by now. Now that we have our interceptor implementation, or response intercept implementation, we can create a network adapter. Let's implement this network adapter here. Let's create here, for example, you can give any name that you want here. I will call this my app network adapter like this, and we should be fine. Here in my case network adapter, let's rename this adapter. Here we inject a constructor here like this. You'll be an empty one. Let's import this, and we call network adapter here. Let's implement your log here like this. Just a log, nothing new here. Log.d tag, and we can say my network adapter message. Again, this is all the structure we're gonna need here. This will help us to practice and learn how to use the model and different functionality that comes with that. The network servers will help us to inject a complex type, and the network adapter how to inject interface type. So let's keep going and let's talk. About Hilt models. Okay, let's create a model here. Models are basically allow us to define the instantiation of a class that Hilt can access that type and provide its instances to whatever it is needed. How do we do that? It's quite simple. We have a model that we apply to a class, and we need to define what the types that are instantiated in the models will be injected. Let's create a new package here. You can see how this works in the practice. Here, let's create a package called Hilt like this, and here we're gonna create network model like this. We have to annotate this with model from Dagger, and we have to put here the installing. Let's create install here, and here we can create an activity component like this. We're gonna talk about components in the next class. You understand how this what for this. We're gonna to talk about components in the next video. You can understand what's happening here. For now, you just put this here, and we just create our model here. Now we can bind our interface here. Let's make this class abstract class like this, abstract class, and we need an abstract function here. And let's call bind network adapter implementation. network adapter implementation, my app, and it'll be an interface that you network adapter here. You bind this interface here, and the implementation, the Hilt will know which one to use because we're saying here which one they will use. Here we can just annotate this with binds, and we're now good to use our interface, for example, in your main activity. Let's close these tabs here. Let's make this, and let's close other tabs like this, and put here. Here in the main activity, we can inject this. Here we can just inject the HTTP var like this, and here we can network adapter. You'll be network adapter because this is the interface and this is the type that we're saying, oh, huge. Everyone who calls this interface here, you call this implementation for us. The main activity don't need to know how to implement this. We can just say network adapter dot log here, for example, and here we can just say that this is interface binding like this. Let's run to see if it's working. Let's run here, and while this is building, what's happening here, that we're injecting our network adapter, that's our interface, and because we did this binding here in the Hilt module, they know that should use this implementation here. In the log catch, you can see here our interface binding coming from our network adapter. Everything's working fine. Let's keep going. Okay, that's good. Now I think we can talk about instant injection. That is probably the type of injection that you're going to most often have in your code. That's because usually you have a variety of types of objects in your application. You might to have third-party library, and you want to inject a type that you don't want. And in this particular case, we use instance injection, like your run database, fetch, maybe you have a glide. These kinds of things, they work really well with instance injection. We just add the provides annotation. Let's implement the network service here. The first thing we can do is remove this abstract here. You can comment this code here too. Of course, we have to remove this from our main activity. Let's comment this, and let's comment this here. Here in your network model, we can create a fun. Let's call this provide network service like this, and this will be the network service type, network service. Let's import this, and here we can just return a network service dot builder like this, and let's annotate this with provides. Of course, we still have to create or make your build here, but we already can call this here like inject network service, and our network service that is this type here. The Hilt will know how to answer to that. Here we can call this here in your main activity. Let's call network service dot. You can see we have access to these variables here. It should not be right. Let's call our function here, and here we can just say that is private like this. I just copy and paste this here, here, and here. And now if you check here in the main activity again, we should be able to just call this performer network call here. Perfect. Let's make your builder here. Let's build this. Okay, I can do this. You have a host here, we have a protocol here. You can add a path here like this ABC. So now if you will run our app, you'll be calling this perform network call here. That will be called from this class here, and our Hilt will know how to instantiate this model with these information here. Let's run this and see what's happened. Here, my network type message, interface binding. Okay, let's run this and see what's happening in the logs. So you can see the network service call performed because it's the call that we call here in the main activity with our instance for network service. You can see here, perform network call, you pass in this instance here. Okay, great. Now let's use qualifiers here. You can see what this is about. In the Hilt folder, let's create here a file called qualifiers like this, and here we'll create qualifiers. Let's use this annotation qualifier here. We need to use the annotation redemption here with the binary value, and let's create our annotation class here. For annotation class, we can use the ones for network. We can use this response one, and let's create another one for the call. Let's have a call interceptor implementation here. We can have two from the same instance. We can use our qualifiers. Call interceptor implementation, and we can just change this to call interceptor like this. Okay, perfect. Let's close this. Let's close this too. And here in the qualifier, we can now just call this annotation class call interceptor like this, and we can create another qualifier. Let's annotate with retention. Let's pass the annotation value here like binary, and let's call this response interceptor. That will be this response interceptor implementation here that will make this log for us. Okay, this was our qualifiers, and now let's use this here. Here we can get rid of this generic one, and we can, let's just comment this, and now we can just create our providers here. Here we have providers like this, and let's create a function call, for example, provide call network service. Like this will be a network service, and let's make this return here. Let me close this like this, and here we can just use the protocol path and the interceptor, and here in this interceptor, this is one is the call. We can just call interceptor implementation like this. Here we passing our interceptor that we just created, and this is the why we have to call or call interceptor here, this annotation here. Okay, now we know that when we call network instance that we have this annotation here, call interceptor, we know that we should pass this call interceptor here. We can now, let's just copy and paste this like this. Let's call this response network, and here we can pass this response interceptor implementation like this. We should be fine now. And now in our activity here, we have this network service here, and I will just have to specify for our activity which type of network service this is. Let's just call this call interceptor like this, and now every time you use this, the Hilt should know that we're talking about the call interceptor, that this one here, this is be called here. Now we have this, and we already been performing the call here. So now we'll log this message, but we log this because our interceptor is not null anymore. We should see this in your log catch here. Let's clean the log catch. Let's run this. You can see this working, and you can do as many as you need. Let me just see what's wrong here. Give me a second. Okay, you probably saw the error where I was copying past things here. This is saying that we using the same qualifier here in your network. You can see that I'm using the same one. I just forgot to pass the response interceptor. This one. This should be fine now. This is the danger from copying pasting, but you probably saw where I'm going past here. You should be fine. And let's run here. Look your log catch. You can see that call interceptor implementation was call. It's because we annotate here with the call interceptor. You can test with the response interceptor too, like this. Let's just run this. You can see this working here. But is this the way you use qualifiers here? You can see now response interceptor implementation was called when they use this network service here. This works fine. Let's create that works fine. Let's see how you can use the context using the Hilt qualifier by injection. For example, let's go to your database adapter here, and we can literally just say activity context like this. Let's import, and here we can say private val context. You'll be expecting context, and here we can, let's say log.d, the context available is your context. And now be really careful here using this, because the activity context can be destroyed and recreated when the user rotates their phone. This is very volatile. Be aware. I'm just showing you that you can do this. You can pass the application context. This have his limitation too, but be aware that it's really volatile here. Here in the log catch now, you can see that we have this huge. Okay, I think that's it. If you want to use your model here if you want to use instance here in other components too, you can just add data here in multiple models. Let's say this. Let's say, for example, a view component. You can just add this here and .class, and you see if you run this, nothing will happen here. Let's put this, and you can see it's keeping working fine and as expected. You don't have to recreate everything every time. You can just add here the places that you need these injections. I think for this video is this. The next one we're going to talk about components, and will be a quick one too, but really important. Let's keep diving. You're going to the bottom of this. Okay, I think that is for this video. I see you the next one.